to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you for taking some excellent questions. And everyone, you've asked really, really sensible questions.
Those were great questions.
Yeah. And
I was
us,
worried.
we love that, don't we? We love.
Yeah, I wasn't
ask.
sure whether we'd get, because normally we have so many questions when we're in person, but those were fantastic questions and just the kind of questions we have normally when people can actually see each other. So that's great.
I think for us, we want you to feel like there's an open conversation all the time. So there's no such thing as a silly question. And Jen and I are delighted when you put questions to us. Hey, good on you. It's been 3 weekends in a row and it's beautiful sunshine out there. So I commend you for being here listening to us. But I do think, you know, my topic today is about wellness, and you've had 3 weekends of really great content to help you feel well. In fact, you know, I think wellness for me is a huge amount about being empowered and empowered to feel as well as you can. So I've just really got the icing on the cake and not a huge amount that I need to tell you about, I think. So the concept of feeling well from our end at the hospital is that you, one, feel like you can ask us questions, and also knowing when to ask us questions. We're really aware in the first 18 months at least of a new diagnosis that your sort of symptom relapse radar is on full alert. You know, you've been given an explanation for why you've been having particular symptoms, and sometimes it's hard to work out, could this be neurological or could it be something musculoskeletal? So we often find that people struggle working out what could be an MS relapse and what's something, when is it something else. So I'm going to focus on that for the next little while, and happy to take questions at the end, or you're also always welcome to email me. My email address is on the slides. Hopefully some or most of you have spoken or met me so far. We are really behind on face-to-face appointments, and I've just had a week where I've had the opportunity to see a couple of people in my clinic with a new diagnosis, and I just, it's the sort of thing that reminds me why I love my job. We want to be able to support you and give you information at the right time from the right person. So if you want to email me to book an appointment, if I've not gotten to you yet, please do. There's 2 of us in our role, myself and Nazila, which sounds super amazing, but actually it still was only 1 nurse because we both work part-time at the hospital. So that's 20 hours each a week. I personally think that's not a whole lot for the biggest centre in New Zealand, but we do as much as we humanly possibly can. That's why we, I think, work in so many ways so well and rely quite heavily on our MS community educators. We work very collaboratively with them, and between us all, we manage to hopefully guide you through some of the good and some of the more challenging times. So I'll get cracking. I guess the main thing is, if you haven't had a copy of this relapse tool, do either let your community educator know or us know, and we will send you one out. As Jennifer has mentioned, there's a lot of reasons to let us know if you're having symptoms. Back in about 2014, when the new pharmac medicines came through, we did an audit of the number of people who had been calling us in the previous 12 months reporting new symptoms that were possible MS relapses. And actually, per head of capita for Auckland and for the amount of people we knew who had an MS diagnosis, the numbers didn't add up to what the studies say, you know, the number of relapses per year for a person with MS. So we did a huge bit of collaborative work with MS Auckland and people with MS in the Auckland area. And we asked some pretty hard questions. Well, we asked some questions that gave us some pretty hard answers, I guess, and discovered that, people do and don't report their symptoms for a variety of reasons. It used to be that people felt the only thing they would be offered was high-dose steroids, and that's not always an attractive proposition. If you've had steroids for an MS relapse before, you've either had a really great outcome in a good situation, or in other cases you've had side effects that have been pretty challenging, and possibly haven't had the benefit you may have hoped from them. At other times during the feedback, people mentioned that they didn't get a prompt reply from their GP, or the GP didn't know what they were looking for. They didn't get a prompt reply from calling the MS nurses or the hospital. So for us, we reflected and sat back and really looked at what we could do to help link you and the hospital and your GP together to help streamline the reporting of a possible new symptom. So we've come up with this little bit like an airplane safety exit tool about where your oxygen and your life vest comes from. And we've put our contact details down the bottom with a bit of an explanation about what you can do as a self-check. So to empower you to work out what you would do next if you thought you might be having a symptom. So we know that a true blue MS relapse is caused by inflammation in your brain and spine. And this is the sort of thing that will last constantly for more than 24 hours. So if you've had a symptom that's lasted for more than 24 hours and it's been carrying on rather than ebbing and flowing, that's the time to think about getting in touch with either your GP or us, or ideally both. It's quite difficult to draw concise pictures of what a relapse might look like, and you'll see the little figure by weakness. That's my favorite picture, and I say that that's not a zombie. So it's just hard to draw weakness. Dizziness and visual symptoms can be quite common MS symptoms, and certainly altered sensation is a really big one for people out there. So those are, good times to get in contact with us. I think the key part that I'd like to talk about today is the occasional symptoms. And in the next few slides, I'm going to be talking about something called a pseudo relapse. And we know that pseudo relapses are caused often by infection, stress, and increased body temperature. So a pseudo relapse is the thing you're trying to weed out. It's an area of old inflammation that you may have had in a previous relapse that can completely have healed up and gone away. So I'll use the example of optic neuritis, which often completely recovers. Sometimes the only way of knowing that you've had optic neuritis in the past is a neurologist having a big look in your eye with their ophthalmoscope, and they can see a change in the color of your disc in your eye. So some people who have had optic neuritis in the past will find that if they have a chest infection, a tooth that needs to be pulled, something that would cause their body temperature to increase, also stress. Apparently moving house and car accidents are two of the top reasons for stressing us out. New jobs, losing jobs. In the current world we're living in, there's lots of stress about it at the moment, for sure. And ambient temperature as well. So increasing temperature in warmer months of the year. Saunas and spa baths, they're a classic for people to notice suddenly perhaps their blurry vision that they haven't had maybe for years or months comes back just for a short time. So we would be saying, if you jump in the shower and your blurry vision comes back, wait half an hour, have a cold drink. If you've got an infection, get some antibiotics to treat that. Look at reducing down your temperature and seeing if that symptom goes away. If it does go away and it doesn't last that 24 hours, it's more likely you're talking about a pseudo relapse, which doesn't mean it's not scary, because as soon as a symptom comes back, people do feel anxious and on high alert. And we're really happy if you call us to try and talk that through and work it out with us. when people do call through, Nazila and I prioritise people ringing and emailing about an MS relapse. So please, in your email or your message, do spell out exactly what's happening, because you are our priority. We will ask you a bunch of questions, and the number one question is often, do you have any signs of an infection? And often, because these are symptoms you've had before, if it's a completely new symptom, that's something as a bit of an alert that you should contact us, but an old symptom may be a pseudo relapse. So what we'll do, pseudo relapse or not, is ask you these questions, and then we may do something that we sort of describe as watching and waiting. So if the symptom is mild, yes, it's yuck and horrible and distressing to have, but it's not stopping you driving, working, walking, those sort of key life things. We may say, let's talk to you again in another couple of days, and then we can reassess how things are going. If there's a symptom that is significantly affecting your day-to-day life, we will either ask you to come in and see us at the hospital. That's not always super straightforward, depending on where you live, depending on the availability of our medical team. So it may be that we work with you to find the best option for you, which is quite often going to your GP. Now, your GP doesn't have to know everything about diagnosing an MS relapse. We've designed another version of the relapse tool. So there's one of these for your GP that's foolishly, I don't have to show you, but it helps your GP work out what to do next. It explains who to call at the hospital, and there's a number that your GP can call directly through to speak to the on-call neurologist. And that can happen while you're sitting there in the consultation with your GP, and it saves your GP having to jump through the hoops of the hospital switchboard. Then, in fact, if your GP and neurologist talk, you may not even need a hospital appointment, and they can work out what to do next, which is sometimes a steroid course and sometimes not. But certainly that's what we hope to do, to take away the stress from you, to streamline this process. I guess it's important and useful to know that if you don't have steroids for a relapse, that's actually okay too. If you don't have steroids, it doesn't mean your relapse will necessarily worsen. I know sometimes I've heard people say, if only I'd had steroids, I wouldn't have ended up with this issue. Actually, what steroids do is they help speed up your recovery, but quite often we'll give steroids to someone and their relapse will keep progressing because it was going to anyway. So it's certainly something to consider, and we hope that it does turn things around more quickly. But it's very difficult for a neurologist to work out between two people, if they were to see them 6 or 8 weeks after their relapse, who had had steroids and who hadn't. I guess the other really key thing is we want to know if you're having new symptoms, even if they are mild, because we want to help you look at recovering from them. Maybe some neurophysiotherapy is something we would suggest. And I know we had one of our amazing rope physiotherapists speaking on week 1. And I really do think, linking in with those skilled people at the beginning of your MS journey, for lack of a better word, is quite sensible, because you can have a one-off appointment with them and know exactly what you should be looking at. If you need to look at your core or other areas of your body you need to or want to strengthen up. For us, it's so important to know if something's going on, because it may be that you're eligible for a medicine. It may mean that, as Jennifer mentioned, we're looking at switching, or you may want to be sort of saying, hey, I didn't expect to have a symptom. Do I need to change up what I'm doing? What about an MRI, as she mentioned? So those are things that you, as the boss of your life, get to talk to us about. And I often describe myself as a concierge, sort of directing people to the right place. it's an ongoing conversation, and you're in the center of that. So this is another really useful bit of information. And again, if you don't have a copy of it, I think Nicola was planning on loading this to the MS Auckland website. I'm also super happy to send you a copy, and I suspect our amazing community educators have a copy as well. There's a real movement at the moment. You know, they talk about brain health being time is brain. So there's no time like the present to start enhancing the way we look after our brains. So, you know, that is something that can be really challenging when we're looking at 3 months of Auckland lockdown. Some of us have been potentially keeping much more active than usual. It sure is a great time to have a dog. And some people have found it much harder to find the motivation or the time, especially if you've got small children, to get out. Obviously, gyms aren't open. There's been some pros and cons on the exercise front for sure, but it's a good time to start building really good lifelong habits and prioritizing yourself, making sure that your whānau know that you need to get out and look after yourself to stay healthy for them. There's a lot of evidence to suggest smoking causes a progression in people's MS. So if you ever needed a nudge over the line, if you're smoking, you know, please again talk to your GP or us, and there can be opportunities to link you in with smoking cessation support. And I know that is really, it's super hard. We want to help you and support you on that. Looking at how much alcohol you drink, it's certainly not suggesting that this is a teetotal MS lifestyle, but I think the whole general public, you know, we should all be taking that advice on. And again, you know, embracing some knowledge about diet and nutrition. And I know Katie Boyd's probably given you heaps of metaphorical food for thought last week on that front. I know there's a couple of people I've met just this week who I've invited to today's webinar. So just to remind you that these have been videoed, so you can go back and listen to Katie and the physio and meditation people, should you want to. Keeping your mind active. You know how everyone used to say, do a Sudoku or a crossword. I spoke to someone yesterday who spent heaps of her lockdown sewing. You know, there's lots of things out there that keep our brain active. And, you know, I think it's almost, I think sometimes people chuckle at this, but, you know, the idea of exercising our brains as well as our bodies is a really key thing to keep limber. Learn an instrument, download Duolingo, and learn to be cheeky to your family in a different language. And again, you know, looking at medicines if that's something that you were interested in. Okay. If you're someone who isn't sleeping so well out there, please talk to your GP or me or your neurologist. There's some really great evidence and research coming out of Europe particularly, and Gavin Giovannoni, who is an MS neurologist in London, has been blogging about sleep a lot recently, and there's quite a bit of evidence to suggest that sleep has a significant impact on your MS. I guess the number 1 or 2 reason for not sleeping so well, outside of having small babies who wake you up, would be bladder function. And if you're someone whose bladder is getting them out of bed more than once a night, perhaps have a word to us. There are some really quite simple things that can be suggested to help with this. And, you know, you are going to be fatigued and you are going to feel cognitively less sharp if you've been up to empty that pesky bladder a few times overnight. So, you know, it can be a challenging and slightly uncomfortable thing to talk to a health professional about, but do it, please. Give me a call if you need any help with your bladder and sleeping. The community educators and also we have information about sleep hygiene And there's a lot of things that you can do to enhance getting a better night's sleep, largely making sure you charge your phone in the kitchen and don't have it next to your bed, and don't look at it right before you go to sleep. Yeah, that'll do. We won't keep talking about sleep. I'm not going to talk any more about diet. I know you've had that already. There are so many amazing and varied MS diets out there. I would encourage you all to have a chat to your community educator and get a copy of the OMS diet book. They're a really great team, and have sort of developed into a fully fledged charity now. So their website's got really amazing content, great podcasts. There's some amazing information in a podcast that I particularly love about vitamin D, which I would recommend you look at. I think the thing with MS diets are find something that works for you, and if all of the OMS 7 steps aren't your thing, you'll find something within that content that does speak to you at a certain level. And I think nothing needs to be done, you know, no one expects you to do this all overnight, you know, pacing things along the way and getting some achievable goals is a really sensible thing to do. And for those of you out there who've got family who are huge researchers, you know, you could always give them that book and let them have the joy of researching diet for you. You know, it's always good to keep your mum or your granny or your sister busy. If they're worried about you, you can let them be some of your fact finders. I guess it's important to know, well, I don't guess, it's really important to know that you have the option out there to select who is in your A team. And you know, there are different services out there. You'll remember in the introduction a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how you're the CEO of your own life. And as the CEO of your own life, you get to choose who is on your board of directors. So there you go, here you are. I'm not sure you're that small person, it's just where that pops up. You and your whānau are the key part of this. You know, you're at the centre of the wheel and you get to make the decisions. You have your neurologist and your MS nursing team at Auckland Hospital. Just by the way, we're based at Auckland Hospital, but the neurologists cover counties and North Shore Hospital too, and Waitakere. We are stuck in Grafton and we don't get a little whizzy car to whip around and visit you, but certainly we can Zoom you if you can't come in and see us. You may find it really difficult to fire your whānau, but you can certainly shop around for a neurologist. It's very difficult to switch a neurologist within Auckland Hospital on the public health system, just because there's a limited pool of people, which often leads people to you know, researching perhaps who they see through private practice. But certainly I believe that my colleagues at the hospital are all skilled neurologists and will do their best to assist you. Looking at interviewing a physio, an occupational therapist, you know, a Pilates trainer, yoga, maybe a personal trainer, I think are things that are really sensible. There are some marvelous neurophysiotherapists in private practice, and also they are available through the public health system. Unfortunately, there is a significant delay, which will come as no surprise to you, seeing neurophysiotherapists at Auckland Hospital and other hospitals. I can't speak highly enough about the Rope neurophysiotherapists and Dilly Davies team at Connect Neurophysiotherapy. In fact, I'd go so far to say as if you find the cost prohibitive, perhaps put that on your Christmas list for people to contribute to, because I think investing in an appointment with a neurophysios is a really, really invaluable. Again, you know, interview. Again, GPs, you either may love your GP or you may not be so sure they're the right person for you. I think having a named GP is really helpful rather than pitching up and seeing a different person. And I know some surgeries and GP practices are designed that way. it's great to get to know your GP. And again, they don't have to be MS experts. They just have to be really good at listening to you, because you're the expert on how you feel. You're the most accurate assessor of what's going on. So shop around. And again, you totally want your MS community educator in your A team. So if you've not yet met the person who covers your area, contact MS Auckland, or I can make a referral for you. So there's so many options there. Many things to consider, and it's a bit of a steep learning curve in this first 18 months. I know there's some of you who are listening today who've perhaps been diagnosed for a bit longer and are coming back for a refresher, and we all kind of take things on at a different pace. But I think if you can look at what life's like and where your stresses lie, easier said than done, right? Changing our habits is possibly the most difficult change to make of all. But if you can think about what stresses you out, make a list, talk to your partner, hopefully they're not on the list, and see what you might be able to cross off your list, see what stress you can ditch. We all have stress in our life, but you know, seeing if you can look at how your work-life balance is. A lot of us have been working from home over lockdown, and perhaps if and when the world opens up, negotiating to work more from home so you can fit in that walk or meditation session to help your work-life balance is something to think about. You know, being strategic and perhaps asking now and setting things up for the future. I think I love John Kerwin talks a lot about active relaxation in his depression and mood work, but I think you know, prioritizing yourself and your need to feel as good as you can. You know, if you're a busy parent, busy at work with responsibilities, perhaps you've got elderly parents you're caring for, you're giving to people all the time, just making sure you're putting yourself in the frame and looking after yourself as well. Please be strategic and think about who to call and who you need at a given time, when to do it, and making sure you talk to the right person about the right thing at the right time. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's a steep call, isn't it? But your body's going to be around a lot longer than an expensive handbag. So do invest in yourself. We think you're worth it. And certainly there will be times where you don't need to speak with anyone or invest in anything particularly, and those times are going to be great. I just spoke to someone earlier today who said she had recently seen her neurologist, and it had just been such an empowering, positive meeting, and things were going really well. And I think for all of you, that is something that you can expect. We want your life with MS. Well, we expect people with a new MS diagnosis to lead a wonderfully boringly normal life, and it's not your life that's going to be boring. We want your MS to be very, very boring and very beige, and we'd like to help you achieve that. So do remember, you're the CEO of your own life. You make the decisions, and you've got people that you can employ in your board of directors to help you manage things when required. Yeah, thank you for listening to me. I'm going to wind up now. Happy to take any questions, but very happy if you want to run outside and start the barbecue or go and meet some people for picnics.